Good afternoon there. How's it going? This is Filmtastic Panda, and I am back after a long ass time to cover some Oscar predictions. This is going to be a little bit of a weird video. I am going to not only do my Oscar predictions, but I'm going to do my personal choices for 2022 in most of the Oscar categories. I'm not going to cover my choices for documentary feature or international feature because I haven't seen enough movies in those categories, frankly, to have like five nominees and an alternate. So I'm gonna do most of the categories with the Oscars, and then I'll tail off by doing the categories I'm not covering on my own. But without further ado, here are the lists, and you guys can judge whether you prefer my list or the Oscar lists. There's no right answer. I'm sure everybody has their personal picks, but this is just what I think will happen and what I would like to happen. So here you go. For Best Picture, you can see that Everything Everywhere All at Once is the number one for the Oscars at this point. I went back and forth between this and Banshees of Inisherin. Both movies have had great precursors. The Golden Globes obviously gave it to Banshees, but SAG nominations came out and they were like the most nominated movies in history. They got four acting nominations each. They got ensemble. These are like two titans at this point in the award season, and I think it's pretty clear that these are the top two. If I had to choose a top three, it would be The Fablemans. Obviously, Steven Spielberg movie. It did well at the Globe. It won Picture and Director. It still has a decent chance at Director, so I think it's a pretty strong bet. There's some other top contenders like Top Gun Maverick, Elvis, and Tar. Not, I don't think any of these will win Best Picture, but these are like guaranteed kind of locks. There's All Quiet on the Western Front, which did really well in the BAFTA long list. It could be a big tech thing, so I can see this getting nominated. Babylon, which I'm really hoping will get nominated because it's such a ambitious, crazy movie, and I feel like it would be great to reward that kind of swing. There's After Sun, which I'll get into a little bit later, and Women Talking, which just about snagged a Best Ensemble, a really deserved Best Ensemble nomination at SAG. So those are the 10 I think right now are the strongest for the Oscars. Then Triangle of Sadness is like a potential sneak that also did pretty well in the BAFTA long list. So that's what I'm thinking for the Oscars. Now I'm going to get into some of my favorite movies here, and you can see my list. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but After Sun at number one. Why is this my number one movie of the year when there's, a lot of bombastic, big budget movies out there for me to enjoy? It's just a movie that I think is perfect. I think there's absolutely no flaws with it. It's a movie that carries a lot of emotional weight. It's very personal. It's very sincere. It's immaculately edited, beautiful cinematography, some of the best performances of the year uh, from Paul Mescal and Frankie Corio, who are just breathtakingly good and have such good rapport. And I just absolutely love this movie. It tore me to shreds. I watched it twice. I watched it at TIFF, and it was already a 10 out of 10. And then I rewatched it back at home, and it just like completely destroyed me. And it's one of my favorite movies of all time now. So there you go. I love Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's my number two, and obviously it's likely going to be a top tier contender this time around. So very very happy if it won. I love this movie a lot. I just After Sun just has my heart. And then I wanted to shout out my number three, Decision to Leave. Sensational movie. As far as like expressive and genre bending filmmaking goes, this is just top tier. I mean, Park Chan Wook just knocked it out of the park with this neo noir romance mystery. It's beautiful. It's masterful. It's a 10 out of 10, and I love it. So I hope some of you get the chance to see it. For Best Director, the Oscar 5, I have Daniels at number one. Right now, it's looking like Daniels versus Spielberg. Spielberg took NBR and took Golden Globes, but Daniels have won a lot of the Critics Awards before that, like the Critics Circle Awards. So I'm thinking the Daniels are going to start pulling through towards the latter end of this season, they're gonna maybe win Critics' Choice and potentially DGA. So I can see that happening. That's why I have Daniels at number one and Spielberg at number two. Then I have Martin McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin. It's a top tier contender, and there's really no reason not to nominate this. Great direction in the movie, and yeah, I mean they just I mean they've snubbed Marty McDonagh in the past before for director, but I think this movie's so highly rated and so well liked across the board that it seems unlikely they're going to snub him this time around. And then I got Todd Field for Tar at number four. Really, really excellent movie, and the direction is immaculate. I would love to see this nomination, and yeah, just I think it's a top tier contender, so why not? And at number five, I had Edward Berger for All Quiet on the Western Front. I just have the international pick that they might go for because I have All Quiet on in picture right now. This number five position it could be really a few people, but I'm thinking Edward Berger sticking right now. And then, for my alternate, I have Baz Luhrmann for Elvis. It's looking less likely after the DGA snub, but it could be him or Joseph Kosinski for Top Gun Maverick. One of those two people make a lot of sense. Now, for my picks, I'm gonna talk about my top two because these are two that are not on the Oscar list. Park Chan Wook for Decision to Leave. If anybody watches that movie and just doesn't appreciate or thinks the direction is like just like okay, they're like on some drugs that I would never want to take. This movie is just sensational, and the direction is so kooky and so playful and so like masterfully done that it's just impossible to deny this as an achievement in directing, and it should be winning in my eyes like every day of the week. And then Charlotte Wells for After Sun, just I mean, this movie is like basically perfect to me, and the only reason she's not number one is because Park Chan Wook did something so insane with Decision to Leave. But she is, she directed the hell out of this movie. It's so tender and it's so beautiful, and every frame is filled to the brim with details and with passion. I just the direction is sensational. And I'll briefly talk about my man Damien Chazelle, who you can see in this list. He is obviously my favorite director, along with Scorsese, you could say. And so it's no surprise to see him here. But I mean, it's bravura filmmaking. Babylon is not a perfect movie, but it is absolutely a directing feat. And I'm surprised that more people haven't recognized it. I guess it's because it's divisive, but Jesus, I mean, the direction in that movie just blows my mind. So yeah, that's why I have him in there, and I love my pick. So yeah, moving on to Best Actor, and it's looking like Austin Butler might take it for Elvis, which would be a great win. I think he's a very very good performer. He's absolutely great in Elvis. It wouldn't be my personal choice to win, and obviously you can see it in my list below. But Austin Butler would be great. Colin Farrell seems like the Oscar two at this point. It's close, very close between him and Butler to win. I would honestly prefer Colin Farrell just because it's not a biopic performance, which I've gotten a little bit tired of, and I think it's a little bit more nuanced, and he has to do a little bit more dialogue heavy scenes as opposed to just like performative scenes. Maybe I'm just like more into that kind of stuff. But yeah, Colin Farrell, great performance as well. Brendan Fraser is number three. I'll get into him later. And then I have Bill Nighy for Living, a movie I haven't seen yet, so I can't comment on it. I want to see it really badly. I just don't know where to watch it right now. I have looked for it, and I just haven't had a chance to see it. And then Paul Mescal at number five for After Sun. I'll get into him later as well. And the alternate is Tom Cruise, which seems like it's not happening anymore, but I really don't know who to go for here because it's pretty thin an actor, and Hugh Jackman and Adam Sandler, those people don't really sound like Oscar nominees to me. So Tom Cruise could still sneak in. I don't think it'll happen, but yeah, this is where I'm at. My personal choices here. So Brendan Fraser, I didn't get into him yet. He is absolutely heartbreaking and astounding in The Whale. My appreciation for The Whale has diminished a little bit since I saw the movie because I've seen some stuff online, and it's made me reflect on the movie. I'm actually rewatching it today, so maybe once I rewatch it, I will like it as much as I did the first time. But something that I will never like backtrack on is Brendan Fraser is amazing in the movie, in my opinion. I just think he is just like everything he has to be, and he absolutely like brings the movie together, and it wouldn't work without him. So I think Brendan Fraser should win. And a number two that I would also like, if it's not Fraser, I would say like this is definitely like a really really strong second. It's Paul Mescal. Complete 180 from like a lot of the performances in this lineup. It's not a big performance. It's not a flashy performance. Not a lot of screaming. It's very very subtle. But after rewatching After Sun, he like you can tell there's like so many signs of what's coming later in the movie, of his mental state. There's just so many signs of what's going on in his like performance, from his like mannerisms, and just his physical performance is just amazing, and it's just so natural and so effortless, and it feels like a real person, like a grounded performance. I just love After Sun, and I love Paul Mescal in it, and I just think it would be a great deserving winner. So that's why he is my number two. And yeah, you can see the rest of my list. I want to shout out Park Hae-il and Diego Calva, who are also, in my mentions. Amazing performers. I mean, they deserve way more nominations, way more attention than they've been getting. Diego Calva completely grounds Babylon, and Babylon's a crazy movie, and he is like the center of it, and it wouldn't work without it. And Park Hae-il is just so underrated for Decision to Leave. I mean, he carries so much emotional weight with him throughout the whole movie. I feel like you really understand his character, and the difficult journey he's going through with his relationships and his frustrations. He's just great. Love him. So that's one of my picks. All right, best actress, and I'll go through these real quick. We got Kate Blanchett at number one, Michelle Yeoh at number two, Michelle Williams at number three, Viola Davis at number four, and Daniel Detweiler at number five. Just sneaking in, I think Daniel Detweiler is great. She's one of my top picks for sure. I just, she's number five because her performance has been seen less than some of the other performances here. Till is not a movie that's like contending for anything. It's only really Detweiler, so that's why she's number five. And then I got Margot Robbie right outside the Oscar picks, and also right outside my personal picks. She is amazing in the movie, and totally deserves a nomination. But it's just so many top tier performances this year in actress that it's really hard to fit her in, unfortunately. But yeah, these are the Oscar fives. And as far as my personal picks, I just want to say that Kate Blanchett, in my opinion, is just so undeniably good in this movie. And I understand, like, for me, like, there's so many other great performances that all of them would be, like, so deserving. Everybody in my top six, and frankly, in the Oscar top six, would be really deserving. But Kate Blanchett is just on another, like, level. It's just, to me, it's like the pinnacle of acting is what Kate Blanchett does in this movie. So, really hard not to give it to her. And then obviously I have Mia Goth in number two, which is a really fun little pick here. I genuinely believe it's the second best performance of the year. She grounds that character like crazy. It's insane that she makes us care about this like insane, like terrible person. But I genuinely felt for Pearl in that movie, and I'm talking about Mia Goth and Pearl, by the way. And yeah, I mean her monologue scene is iconic. Some of her like line delivers are like already doing the rounds on Twitter. It's a really iconic performance, really great. And I'll shout out obviously Tang Wei for Decision to Leave. She's in my picks. She's awesome in the movie. Absolutely loved her and Park Hae-il and that movie. She does exactly what the movie asks her to do, which is being like really magnetic, like sensual point of attraction. And if Tang Wei was like flirting with me, I would also lose my shit as a detective. So she absolutely kills it. And yeah, again, love Decision to Leave and love everything about it.
All right, moving on to supporting actor, we got Ki Hye Kwan at number one. And it's become really evident that it's a sweep. A sweep is happening. He has taken a lot of the Critic Circle precursors. He took Golden Globes. He's consistently getting nominations everywhere. I mean, really undeniable performance, and he's doing amazing. So the sweep is happening, and I love to see it. We got Brendan Gleeson and we got Barry Keoghan for the Banshees of Inisherin. Two really, really strong performances in a top tier movie, and they're happening. We got Paul Dano in The Fablemans. I think, he's missed a couple of nominations here and there. Fablemans didn't do well at BAFTA, but Paul Dano got the sole, acting nomination other than Ensemble and SAG for The Fablemans. And his turn is just so underrated. I think he is quietly really powerful in that movie, and I really love to see this happen. And at number five, we got Eddie Redmayne in The Good Nurse, which I haven't seen, but he's been doing really well, and Brad Pitt as an alternate. I'll quickly touch on mine. Obviously, Kiwi Kwan is just such a deserving winner. I mean, his turn in Everything Everywhere is just so emotionally resonant with me. I resonated with him and that performance the most out of that movie, and the whole cast is amazing. I just love him, and his speeches always bring me to tears, and I hope he does well. I wish him all the best. Uh, and then Brian Tyree Henry, my number two, is in a movie that I didn't think much of, but he completely steals the movie and is just one of the most powerful and emotionally raw performances of the year. And really, it's kind of neck and neck between him and Kiki Kwan when it comes to my personal pick. He's just sensational, and I wanted to shout him out. So there you go. For actress, we got Carrie Condon winning. We got Angela Bassett, who just won the Globe, at number two. We got Jamie Lee Curtis, who's been getting consistent noms, at number three. We got Dolly De Leon for Triangle of Sadness at number four, and Hong Chow for The Whale, who just got a SAG nomination, number five. I have Stephanie Hsu sitting right outside my picks. She could easily get in. I feel like everything from four to six has a lot of flexibility. It seems like the pool is narrowing down a little bit. I feel like Janelle Monáe is no longer contending. The women talking women have not been doing as well in terms of noms and precursors. So it looks like it's going to be one of those, or a couple of those Asian trio that are going to get in. And they're all sensational in their movies. They all totally deserve to get in. And I'm going to talk about some of them in a little bit. So my personal picks, Carrie Condon is my number one. When I saw Banshees, I was just floored by her performance. I had never seen Carrie Condon in any kind of movie before, and she just completely took me by surprise. She was so powerful and so emotionally on point throughout the movie. You could really feel the weight of her character. I just thought she was sensational, and she totally deserves to win in my eyes. I'm on the Carrie Condon train. And the other two performances that I like the most, even though, all my picks I really, really liked, are Stephanie Hsu in Everything Everywhere. She deserves everything. Very sad that she's been missing some precursors. I'm glad she got SAG. I do think, like many people on Twitter, that she is probably more deserving than Jamie Lee Curtis, even though I think they're both great. Yeah, she's such an important part of one of the best movies of the year, and the movie, again, would just not work without her. So yeah. And then Hong Chow delivers another powerful performance next to Brendan Fraser in The Whale. Just really, really great across the board. So that's why she's in my picks. I'll run through screenplay really quickly here. We got The Banshees of Inisherin at number one for the Oscars. Then we got Everything Everywhere All at Once. Top tier contender might win. We got Tar. We got The Fablemans. And the last place we got After Sun. I'll get into it in a little bit. And then for my picks, I got Everything Everywhere All at Once at number one. And the reason I have this at number one is because I just think it's one of the most creative movies that I've ever seen. And to write that screenplay and execute it as well as they did. I mean, I've heard from interviews with Michelle Yeoh and co that the screenplay was pretty much untouched throughout production. They didn't change it at all. They thought out this insane idea. I mean, give it to them. Just give it to them. It's like the most original movie of the year. It's a sensational screenplay. It's so powerful. It's so thematically rich and funny. Like there's just so much to it that it's very very hard to deny it, I think, in my opinion. And then we got Tar at number 2. I have it at number 2 because I think it's just so immaculately crafted, such a masterful screenplay. It only gives you bits and pieces, and it trusts you as an audience member to be like smart enough and paying enough attention to figure out like what's going on. I just think it's like one of the most intellectually stimulating screenplays I have seen in a while, and I mean, I would give it to it if it wasn't for Everything Everywhere. I think it's fantastic. I really hope it does well. I hope it gets nominated, and if it wins, I will be very happy as well. And then After Sun's my number 3. A beautiful movie, and the structure of it is like insanely underrated. The way the movie is just very passive, and it seems very kind of ordinary is really not the right word. It just seems like very slice of life. And then it creeps up on you, and you realize what the movie's been doing this whole time. It's sensational. Sensational work by Charlotte Wells. So, yep. Adapted screenplay. I have All Quiet at number 1 for the Oscars. I have it there because it's, a really renowned book. Women Talking has been falling. Its stock has been falling a little bit. All Quiet has been rising a little bit. I don't know. It's between Women Talking and All Quiet for the Oscars, and I think All Quiet just like slightly edges it, in my opinion, right now. But who knows? I'm not the Oscar, so. We got Living, we got The Whale, and we got Glass Onion running up the list. Those all make sense. It's a much thinner lineup, generally as far as like the pool of candidates than original screenplay. So there's less to choose from. And then I got Top Gun Maverick as the alternate for the Oscars. And for my own personal picks, I have The Batman at number 1. The Batman is a 3-hour neo-noir detective story with twists and turns, with reveals, and it's such a well-crafted movie. It's amazing. The fact that it's entertaining, it's engaging, it's funny, it's thrilling, it's everything, and it was all written into the actual pages. I think it's pretty sensational, and I would definitely reward it. It's definitely not getting rewarded at the Oscars, but I would give it to it. Got After Yang, also high up there. A movie that I absolutely love, and I think is so thought-provoking and beautiful, and just some of the lines, some of the quotes from that movie have stuck in my head ever since I saw it, and I've only seen it once. I really really love that movie, and I think I wanted to shout it out somewhere here in my picks. Cinematography. Top Gun has been winning a lot with like critics groups and stuff, so I'm going with Top Gun, and I'm also just going with a lot of the picks that the ASC, the American Society of Cinematographers, went with, which have like a really really good track record with the Oscars. So Elvis is in there, The Batman is in there, Empire of Light is in there, and I just threw in Babylon because it's such a tech behemoth that I feel like it's weird not to nominate it, especially because it has like really really great cinematography and it's on the map, so there's like no excuse not to nominate it. So yeah, I mean, I would go. I think those are the ones that they would go for. Then Bardo is the other pick the ASC went for, so that's why it's my number 6. I haven't seen Bardo, so I can't comment on its cinematography. I'm sure it's great, but that's why it's not on my picks. And my picks are Decision to Leave. Again, just what a beautiful movie to look at. Just like pause any frame in Decision to Leave. Any frame. Literally, like a movie's like 2.5 hours long, 2 hours and 20 minutes long, something like that. Pause any fucking frame in that movie and tell me it's not beautiful. It's just sensational. I have to give it to it. I have to give it to it. Then I got The Batman at number 2, a movie that also has every single frame is beautiful and purposeful, and it just defies what cinematography can be for a comic book movie, for a superhero movie. I'm so grateful that's this amount of work was put into the Batman, especially after getting the Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer released. It's just, it's just on another level for a comic book movie, and just generally, it's like a top tier like cinematography kind of work. Greg Fraser is a god, love him. He did great work here. And then we got Babylon and After Sun. Linus Sandgren is one of my favorite cinematographers. I freaking love the man. He should have won for First Man. He deservedly won for La La Land. And then After Sun has really like beautiful, pristine, like naturalistic cinematography that is actually really important. I think thematically to the movie, if you look into what the lighting choices are doing, how they contrast like the darkness with the light and what Sophie's wearing and the atmosphere. It's purposeful. It's fantastic. After Sun, amazing movie. Editing, Top Gun Maverick is number one for the Oscars, and it makes a lot of sense. It's planes flying, and it's very very difficult, to make all of that work and make it make sense in a movie. I think the editing's so well done that it makes those flight sequences so cohesive and easy to follow, and it would be a really deserving winner. We got Everything Everywhere All at Once, which has amazing editing. Got Elvis, which has a lot of editing. All Quiet on the Western Front is a war movie, which makes sense. And then The Fablemans is a top tier movie with really great editing, in my opinion. And I put After Sun as an alternate for the Oscars. I'm not really sure this is happening, but if they have any sense of what they're doing, it should. And that brings me into my personal choices. And the reason I have After Sun on number one is because that movie really works because of its editing. If you strip it down, if it's not a movie that's told linearly, I mean, partially it is, but it has some interwoven segments where it all kind of comes together at the end, and the editing between the camcorder footage and the real footage and just everything that goes into manufacturing like the impact of that movie is just insane. And the last 10 minutes are just like I'm I'm not even gonna touch that. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in film, one of the most devastating things I've ever seen in film. I'm like almost tearing up talking about it. So let's move on to something else. Yeah, Decision to Leave's editing, wanted to shout it out. It just some of the most like creative editing I've ever seen. Every transition was like engaging and like interesting and beautiful and purposeful. And if it weren't for After Sun, this would be sweeping, in my opinion. This should be sweeping, in my opinion. But After Sun and this are like two top tier contenders. Both of them I would be very happy with. For sound, Top Gun Maverick would be winning at the Oscars for sure. Then I'm thinking Everything Ever All at Once has a very strong chance. It has a lot of really creative and interesting utilization of sound. It's a very loud movie. Has a lot going on, so it makes sense. Got The Batman and Elvis, which have gotten a lot of mentions at guilds. All Quiet at the Western Front is also a strong guild player and really strong tech player overall. And then my outside pick is Babylon, which is in my personal picks to be in the 5 because it's just an achievement in sound. I mean, watch that movie and tell me that it's not an achievement in sound, but I'm getting ahead of myself. My top picks for sound would be Top Gun Maverick and Everything Ever All at Once. I agree with the Oscars here. I think Top Gun just like rocked me when I was watching it in theaters. I watched it in like a RPX like in Dolby Sound or whatever screening, and I was shaking. Like my chair was shaking. I felt like I was on the jet with the crew. And Top Gun Maverick is a sensational movie, and it should get some wins, I think. So I would love to give it to it. Everything Everywhere, close second. And yeah, like I mentioned, Babylon, I want to shout out Nope. Nope has great sound design. I have it in a few noms here. I haven't touched on it. It's not necessarily my favorite movie. I have some issues with it, but I think the techs are sensational. Score. All right, Babylon winning here. Got Women Talking, pretty close second. We got Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, The Fablemans, The Banshees of Inisherin. These are all pretty strong picks. And All Quiet on the Western Front as an outside shot. Those what the Oscar might do. And I agree with the Oscars here. I think, because generally I would just give it to Babylon. Every single soundtrack in that score is a banger, an absolute banger. It's just so good. The movie definitely does not work without the score. The score is like everything, and is Justin Hurwitz just doesn't not have any like he just doesn't he can't produce anything less than like top tier. He's just incapable, and I love him to death. He is like I will like pray to him every night because he is a god in my opinion. And then we got Michael Giacchino's work for The Batman, which didn't get shortlisted for the Oscar, which is a freaking disgrace in my opinion because it's just so iconic. The Batman theme, the actual just theme for the Batman, the dun 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 dun, is just one of the best songs of the year. I mean, if you look at my Spotify Wrapped, I've played that like 500,000 times. So that should say everything it has to say about that score. So I want to shout out, the Bones and All score is freaking great. The Decision to Leave score is amazing. I mean, there's so many great scores this year, really deserving ones. But I think Babylon just has to take this. Song. Okay, the top three are decently simple. Not to. It looks like it has pretty strong momentum. People are dancing to that song in screenings. People love it. It's pretty much a phenomenon right now. So I feel like it'll carry through the momentum and give RRR a win at the Oscars, which would be really great to see. And then we got Hold My Hand and Lift Me Up from Top Gun and Black Panther. And rounding out the list, we got Ciao Papa, which is the Pinocchio song. And Applause, which is the Diane Warren song, which, usually gets nominated. Diane Warren has like a free ticket to like every original song nomination. So it's happening probably. And the alternate is Carolina from Where the Crawdads Sing. It's a Taylor Swift song, so makes sense. My top three are, the same, just in slightly different orders. I really connected emotionally to Lift Me Up. Like, I replay that song a lot it just, like, replays in my head endlessly. And even though Black Panther Wakanda Forever, I think, was, like, kind of an uneven movie, the end was, like, really emotionally resonant. And, yeah, I mean, it's what it is. I just like it. I just like it slightly more than the other two. Natu, great song. It's my number two, and then Hold My Hand from Lady Gaga, my number three. But, all great songs. I gotta round it out with the Everything Ever All at Once song and New Body Roomba from White Noise, which I also think are great. Those would be my picks. Costumes. All right, we got Elvis at number one for the Oscars. They just love biopic costumes. Got Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which would be great. All Quiet on the Western Front. War uniforms. It seems like a decent pick. And then rounding out the list, it's Babylon and Blonde. Blonde has, obviously recreations of Marilyn Monroe's costumes. Babylon has like a million costumes, and it's fucking great. So yeah, and that's why Babylon's my number one. Babylon not only has the most amount of costumes, it has, I think, the greatest range, diversity of costumes. It has like so much going on. Margot Robbie wears like 8 things throughout the movie, and every costume is like captivating and just like draws you in. I don't know. I like the like production value of the costume design in Babylon just looks off the charts to me. So I just have to go with that, and I also love the movie, obviously. Everything Everywhere All at Once is my number two. I think Joe Putavake, his costumes are like hilarious and like creative as fuck and like really great. And I think it totally deserves to have a nomination here. Like, why not? I would not be upset if it won. I'd be really happy if it won, actually. So I'm sad that it's potentially missing out on the Oscar nom, but yeah, I like it a lot. So Everything Ever at number two. And then yeah, Black Panther. I have some similar picks. Black Panther is self-explanatory. Really great costume design. It won for the first one. It continues to be great. So yeah, those are my picks. All right, we're getting to the end here. Let's power through production design. We got Babylon winning, and you guys can read the rest of the list because the rest of the list is irrelevant. It's not actually irrelevant. Babylon might not win, but I think Babylon should win. It's my number one as well. The amount of sets that have to be built for that movie are just like ridiculous. Again, this movie is a tech behemoth. Like it's definitely gonna miss in a lot of above the line categories, but like I can definitely see it winning like 2 to 3 techs because it's just that strong and totally deservingly. Let's see if I wanted to shout out anything else. Yeah, oh yeah, I wanted to shout out a couple things. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio has amazing production design. It's gonna get overlooked because it's an animated movie, it's a stop motion movie, but it shouldn't be overlooked. It's beautiful, it's masterful, it took a lot of time and an effort, and so I want to reward that with just a mention here. And Nope, again, a movie that's like its texts are kind of mind blowing, and they like recreated the whole like Western like theme park thing. The also the movie set with Gordy, like a lot of the sets in Nope, I think are pretty sensational. The house, like the production design in Nope is pretty astounding. So yeah, that would be one of my picks. All right, makeup and hair. The Whale is probably winning, right? I mean, look at Brendan Fraser. He's in the lead role of that movie, and he's wearing body prosthetics that like actually weigh the amount of pounds that he's supposed to add on to play Charlie in The Whale, and it just looks so like realistic, and it's just like really amazing work by the makeup team. Just really sensational. Brendan Fraser is completely transformed, and they really love to reward that kind of stuff. So it makes a ton of sense to me, and it should win in my opinion as well. Elvis, again, Tom Hanks has prosthetics, and Elvis has a lot of makeup. The Batman has, Colin Farrell as the Penguin, which also is prosthetic work. They love prosthetics in the Academy. They love that kind of stuff. They'll always like reward that. So that all those make a ton of sense to me. Then we got Babylon, which has, a lot of people have were wearing makeup. Like, there's a lot of different makeup work throughout the movie. It's a 3 hour movie, so there's a lot in there. Like, they should find space to nominate that, in my opinion, and they probably will. And All Quiet on the Western Front is number five. You can see the main character's face get progressively muddier and grimier, and there's lots of stuff going on, not only with people's faces, but blood and like special effects with like gory war effects. There's just a lot going on with the makeup, and I think it just makes sense. As far as like something that like differs in my picks from the academies, I would say Everything Ever All at Once. Again, Joba Tapaki stuff. I think they should get rewarded or recognized for that. And I think Blonde, even though it's a movie that I freaking hate, I think it's like one of the worst movies of the year. I think the makeup wear work is like absolutely astounding. Like actually like really, really impressive. I I like share many people's opinion that like I wouldn't love to see Blonde as like an Oscar nominated film, but if I'm being objective here, like I think the work that the makeup artist did, it should not be tarnished because of the film's reputation or if it because of its quality. I think the makeup work is like pretty sensational, and that's why I think it should be rewarded. Animated feature, and at number one, I got for the Oscars, I got Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Yeah, I mean, this seems like it's pretty much sweeping everywhere, so kind of a no-brainer. The five here, honestly, like four of the five are like pretty obvious. We got Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Puss in Boots, Turning Red, and The Bad Guys. So those would be the five. My personal winner would be Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. It's a movie that's in my top 10 of the year. It's a movie that made me laugh, that made me cry, that made me reflect upon society and humanity. And for some people it won't be as deep. For me, it was like pretty deep. Not only was it like deep, but it was like maybe the funniest movie I saw this entire year. I just love Marcel. I have a little Marcel figurine. Like I cannot go with my boy Marcel. Like I just can't. And yeah, Guillermo del Toro number two for me, and then I got some of the typical picks, Booze and Booze and Turning Red, and I have Lightyear as my number five. I don't think it's a particularly like sensational like top tier Pixar movie, but I did like it quite a lot more than most people did, so I feel like it's okay to have it here. And yeah, that rounds out the part of these Oscar predictions that also include my picks.
All right, so let's move on to the final two categories, which I'm not doing my own picks for: international feature and documentary feature. I just feel like I haven't watched enough of these kinds of movies to really make a judgment on like a top five picks. So here are what I think the Oscars are going to do. For international feature, number one, All Quiet on the Western Front performed super well on the BAFTA long list. It's going to be doing pretty well with the text. The guilds are nominating it a bunch, so yeah, I'm feeling pretty strong about this one. Decision to Leave at number two is again a really solid strong pick for international feature. Then at number three we got Close, the Belgian movie from A24. It's performing pretty well, getting nominations, pretty much everywhere it needs to. Argentina 1985 at number four. It won the Golden Globe, which was quite an odd thing to happen. But I don't think it's going to go beyond that. I don't think it's going to win, but it definitely seems pretty secure for a nomination. And for the fifth slot, I think I'm going to go with Bardo, just because Inarritu has a track record with the Academy, and it could potentially get a cinematography nomination just based on what the ASC went for. I think it just has probably the best chance. Some alternates could be Say No More, The Quiet Girl. There's some other Corsage. There's some of the movies out there that are pretty high profile, but that's the five I'm going for. And for documentary feature, I am going for All the Beauty and the Bloodshed to be the winner. I just think its track record so far is pretty strong. It missed a couple of nominations at some like documentary awards, but it's been doing well. It did really well with the critics. It's probably the most acclaimed documentary of the year, and it just makes a lot of sense for this to be the winner. Moonage Daydream, which got shortlisted in a couple of other categories at the Oscar shortlist. Descendant, which is the Netflix movie that's been getting a lot of attention, and it's Netflix's biggest push for documentaries since Junior is not in the shortlist. And then we got The Territory, which is another pretty strong contender. And for my outside pick, getting in potentially at number six, we could have Navalny because of the relevance of it politically speaking nowadays, geopolitically. So yeah, keep an eye out for Navalny. But there's definitely a few documentaries who could sneak in. I wouldn't count anything out. All That Breathes also has a pretty strong chance. There's a lot of good movies out there, and the documentary branch is a little bit more unpredictable than others. So we'll see what happens here. And just very quickly, I forgot about this, but VFX. I'm not gonna cover all the nominees because it's pretty obvious that Avatar is gonna win. I'm just assuming that it's gonna be a bunch of other blockbusters, but Avatar is the winner. So there you go. So that concludes my Oscar prediction video and my picks. Feel free to like and subscribe and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. What movies you would like to see get nominated, what are your personal picks for the year. And as always, appreciate your support and peace.